Yeah, I'll just do a quick intro. So, hey everyone, good to see you all. It's another 100 Days of No Code workshop. Really excited to be joined by Marcus and Jelma, who run Venturism and have a variety of sort of products in their portfolio, all sort of trying to help you validate your ideas quickly. And hopefully I put that right, but yeah, that's it really. And we're here to sort of learn more about how we can validate our problems that we're trying to solve, and also the solutions that we come up to solve those problems. So yeah, I'd love to pass it over to Marcus and Jelma to take it from here, and I think we have some time later for questions. But yeah, take it away, guys.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Max. And first of all, I just want to say a massive thanks to you, Max, because I think what you're building with 100 Days of No Code, to me, I've been part of quite a few of the communities now, but this feels like a really, genuine, approachable, lovely community with you get a lot of belief capital and a lot of support, and I just love being part of it. So it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay, shall we?
Sure. Is it everybody can see my screen?
Yeah, okay. It's not in presentation mode.
No, I'll.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, so me and Jelmer, we're co-founders of Venturism, as Max said, and you have a venture builder in Jelmer. He's a corporate venture builder, launched about 20 plus startups by now, and I've got a history of building a global product studio called Us2 with about 300 employees today. And together we've probably launched about 100 plus products. And so what do we do at Venturism? We can go to the next slide. So we say we're a no-code first startup studio. And what we mean with that is that the people that our audience, so to speak, are no-code creators and bootstrappers, and maybe more specifically, those no-code creators who wants to take that leap into turn their side project into more of a business, I guess. And our mission is to help creators and makers and first-time founders get their first 100 customers online, and helping with that transformation, going from maybe a bit of a tinkerer side project to taking the leap to do more, to become more of an entrepreneur and a founder of a business. So it's in that space that we want to help. And our philosophy is based around building a portfolio of multiple bets and validating those and doubling down on the ones that work, etc. But we will come back to that, and Jelmer will go deeper into that part in a bit. So some of our bets in our portfolio, some of the things we're doing right now, we're working on Launch OS, which is an online course, and me and Jelmer are basically, pouring our years of experience and our heart and soul into this online course to help creators leverage no-code in turning their ideas from ideas to multiple businesses. And we are also working on a product called Sneak Peek. We can shape, share, and sell your ideas online. And this was a little bit based on our problem when we wanted to validate our products. The solution we had back then was, okay, we need a domain for this new venture. We need to use Notion. We need Super and do the website. We maybe need MailChimp and Gumroad, and putting all those pieces together. And it felt like a hassle for every idea we wanted to validate and launch. So we created Sneak Peek that take care of all those parts, basically. And then the latest product we're working on now is Shuffle, which we did as part of the On Deck build weekend that's just been this weekend, like 72 hours of a hackathon, basically. And as we said before, it started out as just a fun hackathon project, but it's probably turning into something more, because there seems to be a lot of traction and interest in this product. We have about 250 people on the waiting list who are interested. So we're working out if we're going to turn this into something proper going forward. And it's basically a way for creators to, a super easy way for creators to network with other creators globally. Because we feel quite privileged to have communities like this, like 100 Days, and communities like On Deck, where you can just get on a call or get on a hangout and have a really inspiring conversation with someone. But we want to make that a lot easier for everyone. So you just start up Shuffle, you press Shuffle, and you get to speak 10 minutes conversation with a random creator somewhere in the world. So that's the basic concept there. And then we also launched last week or the week before a community supporting our mission as a company. A place, it's basically a free Slack community where creators and early stage founders can go and help each other find those first 100 customers. It's called the 100 Club that we just launched. And that's really cool as well. And there seems to be a lot of interest and a strong need to help with that, to turn those side projects into businesses or, yeah. So that's some of the things we're doing. And why are we doing all of this? And I think there has, and this is why me and Hjalmar are so excited about this, because there has been, if we look back, there's been some really strong vintages for startups, back in the dot-com days, to mobile and all the mobile startups, to now no code. And we really think that no code could be the biggest accelerator of India entrepreneurship since the internet. And we want to help with that from our experience. So that's why we're here. And then I'm going to hand over to the man, Hjalmar. Take this away.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. So yeah, like Marcus says, we believe that no code could be the biggest accelerator of indie entrepreneurship since the internet, and could be is, I think, emphasized in this sentence because the space is still very young, and we feel like it kind of needs to get out of its own way in a way. So what do we mean by that? So if we look at the space currently, and everybody all excited coming into no code, suddenly they have superpowers, they have an idea, they can immediately build it, right? And some due diligence, I guess, and due process is lost in that enthusiasm. So what we see happening is people building stuff without validation. What does that mean? They have an idea. They feel like they can't tell anybody about it in case somebody steals it. They build it in stealth without sharing it with other people and talking about it. And then all of a sudden, their MVP or whatever is done. They launch it and it's like, ta-da, you didn't know this, but I built a product. At which point, of course, there's just crickets because nobody knew something was coming up. There was no hype behind it. They didn't validate whether it served any customer need, and yeah, there's a product built for no reason, basically. And with validation, this changes, right? So a process with validation would look something like, I have an idea for a potential audience, emphasis potential. I don't yet know if they are the right one, but I'm going to confirm they make a good audience, so they make good customers. I identify they have a critical problem, right? We always say fall in love with problems, not solutions. So I identify a critical problem they may have, and once I do that, I can start coming up with solutions. So once I have an idea for a solution, I'm going to confirm their interest in that solution, and if I have that confirmed, I build it in public. Basically meaning I talk about it as I build it, like we kind of did with Shuffle. And I get continuous feedback, improving my product. So this kind of reasoning, or this slide, I kind of stole from Kieran at Launch MBA, but I think it's a very good it's a very good depiction of what we feel is still missing in the space, and that's part of why we started Venturism, and it's part of what we're going to be discussing in this talk. So obviously, no code has a huge bias towards action, right? You can immediately pick up any tool and start building. And I think this building part is its huge power. You can do you can do rapid prototyping. You can build stuff as soon as you think of it, and you can build stuff basically from your passion. Work on something you're interested in, you're enthusiastic about. And this is most of what we see right now. So people build fast and they solve problems they love. But what we don't yet see is the lean validation aspect. And this is all technical terminology. You don't have to remember it, but basically that means test everything. Test every assumption that you made along the way. And this is kind of the transformation we feel can still happen in a no-code space. And it should happen if we want the space as a whole to mature and for an entire creator economy to evolve and stand up. So testing everything, this is the essence of validation. And why you do something like that is basically to reduce the risk of a failed product, to reduce the risk of launching something and nobody wanting it, nobody buying it, and you have to start all over and you're disappointed and demotivated maybe. So in essence, if I've learned anything building these 20 startups for corporates and myself, it's that a startup is nothing but a series of validations, basically. I know it's not as exciting as you would want it to be, but it's basically the truth. So we recognize 5 levels of validation. We say you have to validate your audience, which is, can we identify somebody to build for and really pinpoint who they are? We validate problems. So does something have to be built for them, or is there no problem to be solved? We validate solutions. So is this the right solution to solve that previous problem? And will people pay for that solution? So we validate whether we can sell it, whether they will buy it. And lastly, we validate the go-to-market, which is basically a validation of, or a test of, can we actually reach these people? Because if you build a product but you don't know how to get it in front of your customers, then of course it becomes difficult. And I think this is maybe another bias to emphasize, or blind spot to emphasize, that I still see in a lot of makers, is building a great product is only half the work. Like the other half is promotion. You have to distribute and promote the hell out of your product if you want it if you want to get paying customers, basically. So we always say trust evidence, not opinions. So you might have a really good gut feeling about something, and maybe as you go through the building cycle multiple times and you become a multiple founder, your gut will develop. You'll get a good feeling of what a good product is. But in the beginning, we say trust evidence, not opinions, and this basically means you're going to run micro experiments at every stage of validation. And if your experiment is validated, you move on to the next phase, until everything is validated, then you can launch. This sounds like a super long-winded process that you don't have any energy to do, or you're not interested in doing it. But it doesn't have to be. It can be something, it can be done in a day almost, or a day or two almost, if you go about it the right way. So I just want to take you through all these levels and how we might validate them, just to give you an idea. By the way, if you have any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to interrupt. You don't have to save up your questions till the end for me. If there's a bit of interaction, I don't mind. So yeah, just so you know. So if you want to validate an audience, first we need to understand what an audience exactly is. So usually when people talk about audiences, they automatically arrive at the kind of the marketing, the paid ads, targeting terminology, which is it's a person with a name, a gender, occupation, a certain geography and income. This is not what we describe as an audience. An audience for us is somebody, is a group of people who have the same needs, who have the same goals, the same ambitions, same interests, same motivation, and the same general attitude towards life or towards a certain subject. This is maybe a bit abstract or a bit qualitative, right? You can't really pinpoint that easily. But in general, these people, they share a journey. They're on the road towards the same outcome as I guess the people in this call are. Everybody is looking to launch a business on the internet using no code, right? This is our journey. And because of that, we share the same problems, same goals, same ambitions, etc. So how do you validate an audience? Validating an audience, for me, it's threefold. We say if you want to know if the audience that you want to build for is right, first of all, it has to be big enough, right? If there's only 5 people in your audience, unless you're selling deals of 50K or something, and even then, it might be too small for you to build a product for. So definitely look at the size. The size is, of course, super relative. I mean, it completely depends on what your ambitions are with your business. And we also say, don't look at the size of an audience just as a static number, but look at it as a vector. Look at, are they growing or are they shrinking? Why do we like the no-code space? Because it's in its infancy and we feel like it's expanding rapidly. So this is a good audience for us. Then the next is gravity. Gravity is a term we use basically to describe, can you find them online in a single place? If people aren't centralized, like in a community like this, if we cannot find all no-coders in 100 days of no-code, that's perfect. But if there wasn't a community like this, we would have to kind of go looking for them one by one and somehow collect them, for instance, in an email list, which is hard work. And yeah, that basically makes it difficult for us and also makes the distribution more difficult. So gravity, make sure that your audience is centralized. And thirdly, make sure there's a lot of engagement. If it's a flat community, if people don't talk, if they have no problem, if there is zero interaction, then it becomes difficult to kind of reach them, right? And to kind of interact with them as well. So these are kind of the 3 factors that we look for in validating an audience. What are experiments you can run to validate your audience? Basically, there's no real experiment for audience. If you remember the previous slide with the experiment animation, there was no experiment there. Why? Because you can't really quantitatively define whether you find your audience, or the way you validate is just hang out in the space, try to interact with people and see what's up. It's mostly an instinctual thing, I guess. Luckily, problem validation already is a bit more tangible. So when we look at validating problems from a macro level, we look at 3 levels of customer insight, 3 levels of problems that you can solve. The first being the zeitgeist. This is the most abstract one, the high level one, deals with somebody's beliefs, motivation, and attitudes. If you understand this about a customer, you can predict what they want in the future. This is what Steve Jobs was so good at, you know. Jobs to be done is 1 level more concrete, and this has to do with somebody's job, somebody's goals, intentions, and ambitions. These are things you can basically question somebody about. Their zeitgeist is usually not that tangible even for them. Jobs to be done you can question them about, and if you understand that, you usually can come up with better solutions than your competitors. So when we built Sneak Peek, our main insight was people don't want faster web designers or faster landing page builders. They want a better way to show off and sell their stuff on the internet quickly. So that's why that was the insight. Whereas the critical pain, the pain that people talked about was, well, the website builder is not fast enough, right? That's how they felt about it. So the critical pains, these are the most tangible, and this is the low-hanging fruit. So this is problems, needs, obstacles. This is what you'll hear people complaining about. And I think as a beginning founder, focus on these, because if you can come up with a good solution for a critical problem, you'll definitely make a good business, right? So start there. And I focus in the next slides, I'll just focus on critical pains. So every product solves a problem. That's the basic thesis. What are critical pains? Well, I'll go into it. So every product solves a problem. So you should fall in love with problems first, and not necessarily solutions. If you have a cool idea, you can get really carried away with it, become really enthusiastic about it. This is good, but also keep a voice of reason and kind of validate that stuff. So we try to look for problems that we're passionate about, not necessarily ideas that we have that we're passionate about. So why critical pains? Why are we talking about critical pains? Why are we talking about any pains? Because if it's just a small nuisance, it's not that big of a pain for me. I'm not going to spend money on solving it, right? So The lights in my hallway, they only got fixed, I think, last week, but they were out for 6 months or something. Why? I didn't need them. I have lights in my bedroom, and I have them here in the living room. The pain is not big enough for me to throw money at it, right? So it's not urgent, it's not painful. Whereas if I have a huge headache, I immediately want relief from it. So people occasionally buy vitamins, but they are always stocked up on painkillers. So make sure that you have like a painkiller product. How do you know if your pain is critical, the pain you're solving? Well, usually they are specific, which means you can really articulately define them. It's not a general or vague statement. A pain like I have no light in my house is much more vague than the light bulb in my hallway broke down, right? It's immediate, like the headache problem, right? If I have a headache, it's an immediate problem. I have to solve it at that moment. I can't postpone it. So I would be willing to throw money at it. It's frequent. This is not mandatory, but it's good, because if you're looking at recurring business models, you want a recurring problem. You want something that people don't run into just once, unless the deal size is big, right? I mean, people move every day. Like single families don't move every day, but there's people moving every day, right? Oh, I hit escape accidentally, sorry about that. And they are perceived as wasteful. So critical pains are usually a huge waster of time, money, or effort. So these are 4 dimensions by which you can judge a critical pain. And most importantly, we said it before, fall in love with critical problems. So a big question is, do you love this critical problem? Because if you can scratch your own itch, that's usually a sign that somebody else has the same problem and will also be in the market for the same solution. By the way, I don't know if anybody's timekeeping, but we're going through all of these. So if I'm going too slow, please speed me up, okay? So some experiments you can do to validate problems is, first of all, publish. Whether this is tweeting, whether you're more comfortable speaking, sending audio messages, writing, doing videos, any of those is good, but publish the problem that you're thinking of solving, or that you think you see. This is what we do on the Venturism blog all the time. We write a blog about something that we feel is a problem, and then when the response is good, we know that there's a product opportunity there. So once you have this critical problem, now you can dive into building your solution and validating that solution. So solution validation is probably the most important part. You can usually grab the former ones together in your solution validation if you do it right. So, and there is usually a back and forth between problem and solution validation. Just to point that out. So when we look at validating a solution, we usually want to validate it on 4 levels. Again, you don't need to remember the terminology, but basically you want to know, do people love the product? Can I make money off the product? Can I actually build the product, or can I learn how to build it? And then fourth, this is optional, but it's becoming more important. Is it ethical for me to build it? So these are the 4 dimensions you want to always keep in the back of your mind as you're validating solutions. And here's the process that a super easy process you can use to validate a solution. Even if you didn't do the previous 2 steps, if you do this, I think this is the most lean validation cycle you can go through. Meaning you start with short form content. So I tweet something, I do a post on Instagram, I create a TikTok, whatever, and I see what the response is. This can already be a solution. You see these tweets, Uber, but for X, you see these tweets and then they get a lot of likes. That means that there must be some interest in it. If you have that validation on the short form content, create a piece of long form content. So maybe write a longer post about it, going deeper into the problem, see how the response is to that. Maybe create a PDF helping people with the problem in a lightweight way, and before you build a more extensive product. Create a YouTube video. If you, sorry, I got a phone call. So if you validated that, or if the response to your long form content is good, maybe you can start thinking about collecting an interest list and email signups. and you can find out are there actually enough people willing to give me their email addresses for me to have the idea that that people are interested in this solution. This is actually why we started building or selling pre-orders for LaunchOS so soon, is because we got so many people on the interest list. It's also with Shuffle right now, we have so many people on the interest list that we feel like we have to continue with this, right? And then afterwards, if your product allows it, go for pre-orders. Pre-orders, of course, are the way to monetize. If people are going to pay for something, this is the ultimate test, right? I think what's his name, Jeff Morris Jr., one of the co-founders of Tinder, recently tweeted it out that the ultimate validation of any product is the pre-order, or at least is people are pulling their wallets out and throwing their money at you. So definitely use those. And all of these you can do before you build usually. That's the good part. Once you get enough pre-orders, you can start building. So build a no-code MVP, put it in front of people, get feedback on how it works, get feedback on what features they are missing. Are they loving it? Are they hating it? And maybe it's time, if they don't like it, maybe it's time to take a step back and redesign it. And if your MVP is validated, then you can start thinking about launching a V1, right? All of this can be done, I guess, in the span of a week's time, if you do it right. I mean, if we look at the Shuffle example, we built and launched that. Well, we didn't launch it yet, but we built it in 4 days, and we could launch it right now, basically. There, you have a question? Go ahead. I see somebody raised their hand. But...
yeah, just if you can't come off mute to here, just chuck it in the chat and I'll ask it for you. But yeah, feel free to carry on, Jelmer, and we can, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
If anything pops up in the chat, by the way, feel free to interrupt me.
Sure, absolutely.
So if we look at this validation ladder, then basically the first 3 steps, they cover the desirability. Do people love it? The next step, pre-orders, covers do people want to pay for it? And the no-code MVP covers, can we build it? So the 4 pillars I pointed out in the beginning, they're all covered here, other than the ethics or the responsibility, which runs throughout, I guess. And Sneak Peek, our product, it basically covers this part of the funnel, right? This is why we built it for the interest list and the pre-orders, and to really quickly validate our solutions. So if we look at experiments that you can run to validate your solution, other than the ones we just, the ladder we just went through, think interest lists and think in terms of customer interviews and getting feedback that way. And if we look at monetization, what can we do? Think of pre-orders. And if you have a product that doesn't really allow pre-orders, some SaaS products might be hard to sell pre-orders on, do a smoke test, which basically means let customers check out, put in their payment information, and then redirect them to a page where you say, I'm sorry, we're out of stock, or we haven't launched yet. Thank you for your feedback. You won't be charged, but you can leave your email address here. But at least you validated that people are willing to pay for your solution, right? And then lastly, we have the go-to-market level of validation. What is go-to-market? Go-to-market is basically distribution. It's getting your product in front of customers. And I feel it's hugely overlooked, not just in the no-code space, but in startups in general. There's a huge emphasis on product. People are hyped about product, but knowing how to get the product in front of people is hugely important. And like I said, it's at least half of the work. But of course, you want to do it in the right way and make sure that the efforts you put in, the money you put in is right, is spent well. So the first, and I think the easiest way to validate a go-to-market is to build in public. First of all, it doesn't cost you anything. And second of all, it's you can do it from day one, right? You can basically, as soon as you have the idea, you can start tweeting, or you scope the problem, you can immediately start tweeting about it. So definitely advise doing that. And what you're looking for in return to validate it is engagement. Like, do people engage with it? Are people interested in it? You don't need a huge following to validate this stuff. Second is free media. So your free media is everything from this exact talk that we're doing right now to podcasts, to guest posting and all that stuff. So it's basically putting yourself out there, sharing value with people, and in the meanwhile, getting known, I guess, with your target audience. And the main metric you want to take into account here is the effort, right? So how much time do I put in, and what do I get in return in terms of new customers? And as soon as you find something that works, double down on it, triple down on it, and just do it over and over again. And that's where like the work comes in, right? And the third is paid media. If you have the resources, definitely look into it. If it's your first rodeo, you probably won't have the resources. But as you build more products, as you build up your portfolio and some of your earlier products start making a profit, consider reinvesting some of those profits into ads for your new products, right? Paid media, you basically want to look at profitability. It's the most simple model there is. I put money in and how much money comes out, and if there's a positive difference between the two, I'm profiting. So yeah, if you're able to do it, do it. Some tests for go-to-market. Well, basically it's building in public and see what comes back. But I think go-to-market is one of the most, it's something that requires the most experimentation. It really has to do with where your audience hangs out, what channels do they use, can I reach them there, if I can reach them there, what content do I create, or whatever do I put in front of them to get them to look at my product or to discover my brand. This just requires a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error. And as soon as you get that signal, like, okay, this tactic seems to work, then you can double, triple down on it. And lastly, this is very, very important, I think, but it's sometimes overlooked because people are so focused on profit. It's founder fit, and this is super easy, super easy to validate. The only question is your heart in it, and will it be in it for the next couple of years if you continue to work on this? Could you do this for the next 5 years? If no, then start. So that was it for me on validation. I'm very happy to take all of your questions, and I'm sure so is Marcus. You can find us on Twitter. You see our handles on screen. You can find us on Instagram, even though we're not that active on Instagram. Website is venturism.io, and we have a newsletter on Substack. One of the earlier ones is maybe interesting in relation to this talk. It has an experiment database outlining 50 validation experiments that you can do to validate your product, which might be a cool resource. If you want, Max, I can also share a slide deck outlining the same 50 experiments, and maybe you can distribute it in your community.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks so much, Jelmer and Marcus. That was brilliant. Sure. Yeah, perhaps if you wouldn't mind sort of stopping sharing your screen, and then we can just open up for questions. But that was great. Thank you. Hello. So yeah, everyone I think knows the drill. If you have any questions, just come off mute.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Jen. That's absolutely fabulous. I'm in the process with my colleague Jason there, just getting a marketplace idea to move forward. And I was just wondering what you found of the free media category there was the most sort of successful from what you've learned from that.
For us personally, you mean, or?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it's twofold. So I think it's mostly what we're doing right now. So getting in front of audiences in video calls and these types of meetups, doing Ask Me Anythings, that sort of stuff. And the other one is basically community work. So we are usually very, very engaged with communities, try to respond to questions, not just our own, like any community, and kind of building a reputation and credibility there. I think marketing in general, or distribution in general, is about creating credibility, building credibility with your audience, and removing kind of barriers for them to give money to you, basically, and solve their problems.
What's the approach of targeting an audience then, a community? Where would you sort of start with that?
The way we started is by publishing. So we just started making noise online about the things we were thinking about. So actually my first couple of newsletters for venturism, they weren't directed at the no code space. They were just directed at people like myself, venture builders. But I got a lot of response from the no code space because I mentioned no code MVP somewhere, and I got all this response, and I was like, oh, let's look into this this group of people. And I got excited about it, engaged a bit more, and started tailoring my content more towards that audience. So
that was your experimentation, and you were trying a newsletter, and it just happened to spark with the no code community, and then you doubled down on that area there.
Definitely. So when I started the newsletter, I didn't have like an end goal in mind. I was just like, I'm going to share my knowledge with whoever is interested in it, right? I felt like I've built startups now for 5 years. I probably have something that somebody else can learn from. I'm just going to share it and see where it sticks. And if nothing sticks, I'm going to try another topic, right? And yeah, it stuck with the no code community. So I doubled down on that, started tweeting more because that's where the no code space hangs out. Started joining communities because that's where no code people hang out, like that.
Brilliant.
And I think even if you have a sort of idea of a target audience, it's a little bit like fishing. You throw the hook out and you imagine trying to catch one type of fish, but you don't really know. You might catch another type of fish, and so you have to be a little bit open-minded to that in the experimentation phase.
Definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Sorry, Mark. Go on.
No, I was just handing it back over to you, Jason, or anybody else. Thank you very much. I'll take enough time. Thank you.
What you said and finding the platform, because depending on what you do in different groups on different platforms, right? So you're not going to find many no coders on Instagram, for instance, as you pointed out. So do you have to? I guess you have to find the platforms that your audience is on and go on those platforms as well, and then start making a noise there, right?
Exactly. So you have to find the channels that they're interacting on. And I sometimes try to kind of reverse my thinking and not think in terms of how can I reach them, but rather how can I help them find me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a question of trying multiple channels. It's literally experimentation. It's trial and error.
Would you start by finding that before then you're building in public with the audience, or are you just gonna, do it all at the same time?
Yeah, I think the building in public is part of it, actually. So even when we're not literally building a product, I'm still communicating about my process, which for me counts as building in public. So I might even say, I might even tweet like, I'm looking for this type of people. Where do you think I can find them? Or what are the best types of communities for XYZ target group? Where do musicians hang out? And then
like I think build in public, just to expand on that point, it doesn't have to mean build your software in public. It's like build your venture in public from beginning to end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's like networking. So even if your audience is not on Twitter and you're building in public, someone will see that who knows somebody on another platform or system or channel or community that then will lead you down that route into there.
Definitely. Yeah. And people on the internet are more helpful than you think. If you just ask them, hey, I'm looking for I don't know, for beginner guitar players, where do I find them? Somebody will know. Somebody will tell you.
Yeah. And then a question I have is when you're in something, I guess no code is a good example where you're in there early at the beginning stages. So there's not a lot of noise. There's not a lot of audience. There's not a lot of people that realize that they're going to need this product or this service or something like that. Is it just a case of just keep putting it out there and until people start to listen and then sort of find your way from the feedback that you get? Is that the best way to do that?
Well, at some point, I don't know what your process has been like currently, but if you're putting out content consistently and it's not resonating and you're not getting feedback, then either you're not promoting your content enough, or your content just doesn't resonate with the audience. And if it doesn't work, then you can always resort to interviewing people, but maybe the more low barrier to entry way of that might be just to ask people, look, what do you want to learn about topic X, right? What is your biggest problem with no code? Or what do you want to learn about building a venture? And some response will come up, and you can see if you can offer an answer to that. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, it does. And just another question. You talked about the painkiller, the critical solution. Another thing that people pay for is convenience. So it's not a critical solution, but it's just they're going to pay for convenience. They're going to pay, obviously, if the price is right, they will pay for something that just makes their life a little bit easier. Is the strategy different in that way? Is to finding this killer product?
Not necessarily. I think people also do irrational stuff, and I think with convenience, it's usually problems of convenience are usually super heavy on the frequency, right? It's not a huge pain, but it's something I have to do all the time, like every day. And that's when people will pay for convenience, I think. But I also think there are problems, or there are, I guess, solutions that, like, a cigarette doesn't solve a critical problem, right? Until you're addicted, then it solves a critical problem. But before, it doesn't solve a critical problem. Why? Because it relates to the level I didn't talk about, which is a job to be done. And a job to be done with smoking a cigarette might be, I'm a teenager and I want to look cool, right? Or I'm stressed and I want to wind down. And then it becomes an addiction, and then it becomes a critical pain.
Yeah. Okay. No. Great answers. Thank you.
I was going to just chuck in there. I love your visual sort of GIF thing with the funnel. Really like that. But it kind of, that obviously there's multiple steps there, and I guess there is no need to over-engineer it, but I think there is need to track that your process through that funnel. So I was wondering, like, how do you measure your like where you are at in that funnel, so you're moving like consistently through it, so that then that you can take multiple bets, as opposed to sort of being in the same funnel for a long time without knowing where you are in that funnel, if you know what I mean. So I guess, just like, is there a more systematic way to like track your way through that?
Definitely. So we didn't go into this too much because I think it's not as lean, and it might therefore not be as compatible with every no-code builder. But as you get more experience and start building larger businesses, you start setting up experiments like in a scientific way. So there's an assumption, like a hypothesis, and there's a benchmark or a metric that you want to achieve with your experiment. And if you don't, then it wasn't validated. So you stay so this idea stays in the same phase. But if let's say we launched 10 products on Sneak Peek, and we open the interest list up, and we say, if we get 50 interest list signups in the first 2 days, then we know the problem is validated. We can go to pre-orders. But if it's 30, then it's not there yet, right? So you might have to tweak kind of the offering or the problem that you think you're addressing until you find something worthwhile. And then once you open up for pre-orders, we do the same thing. We say, okay, let's see if we can get, I don't know what we said. I think it was like, if we get 20 pre-orders on the first day, that would be huge. I think we got 40, so we're like, okay, this we definitely should go forward with this. But if it doesn't work, we just reimburse everybody and try a new idea.
Nice. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Yeah, and
that, just to expand on that point quickly, that can be quite hard, that sort of mindset, if you have like one idea that you're really passionate about. Yeah. It becomes a lot easier if you have 2 or 3 ideas you're playing with, because you don't need to get that emotionally attached to one. So you can set those sort of benchmarks. You know, if we don't hit 20 pre-orders in the next 48 hours, we're going to move on to the next idea. But if you're stuck in that one thing you've been dreaming about for, years, it's very hard to do that. You really just keep grinding.
Yeah.
And that's why we sort of, our philosophy is to try to have multiple bets going at the same time to limit your emotional attachment in the early stages. Then at some point, when you double down on something, then you should go all in.
Yeah, it's
it's so refreshing, that attitude of just trying and seeing what happens. I'll be instinctively frightened to death of disappointing someone who's put a pre-order in with some expectation, and then they're that's withdrawn from them because it's not validated to a sufficient point. But I suppose what they've lost nothing, have they? They got their money back, and move on to fight another day. But maybe some sort of slight dent in the pride or reputation. But I suppose that's an expense you got to put up with. But that attitude there of just lots of different things, keep trying, and then it's just makes complete sense and it's refreshing. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that as well, because if you have one thing that you dream of and you put everything into and you've not validated, it's really hard to pull back from that. And especially if you spend 6 months on money or whatever it is. But if you've got lots of different things at early stages, then it's not so difficult to pull back at that stage, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's some sort of passion blindness that kicks in, if you have that one dream project.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
It's like being in love in that way.
Yeah. yeah, that's good. I was gonna just I was gonna ask around I think so. I like the idea of being more clinical and sort of scientific, but I guess thing that I always wonder is like, how do you mitigate against getting like false positives and negatives when you're like running tests? So like how big do you have to go to like actually know whether that Facebook ad works or not? So it's kind of just like, how do you sort of strengthen your experiments that you're taking to know that the answers you're getting are actually like true as opposed to false?
I think we might be getting into more advanced strategies here, or at least the ones that require more money. But yeah, the answer is run multiple ads, right? So run multiple ads against the same or multiple audiences. Do A/B testing, or it doesn't have to be ads, but multiple experiments. We're trying to figure out how we can do this lean and at the same time de-risk it enough, right? Yeah. And I think with no code you can build something so fast that the method of validation should be faster or more efficient than just building it, right? Than just building something in 3 days and launching it. Because if our validation method is going to take 4 days, well, you're better off just building it and putting it out there and nobody wanting it, or finding out everybody wants it. So from that perspective, we didn't really go into the multiple experiments thing. But if I'm building a startup for a corporate, for instance, we spend anywhere between 5 and 25,000 euros on ads just to validate, right? Just to de-risk, because the investment that they would waste if we didn't do it would be multiple hundreds of thousands of euros.
Sure. Yeah. No.
And I think it's a little bit like dating. You don't settle down and get married after the first date. You need to do it's the same with the experiments. Like, you need to do some X amount to feel sure that, okay, these 5 experiments are kind of telling me the same thing. Okay, let's double down on that.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the hard thing is when you're starting off is having your benchmark. So, what quantifies success in your advertising campaign, on your mailing campaign. It's difficult to have that benchmark to test if what you've done has been validated, right? And as you do more and more, you then get a feel for it, like you said. But how do you go about bench testing when you first start? What's a good indicator that something is worth pursuing?
It's yeah, it's difficult. I think it's part gut feel. Like I can't tell you right now, get 50 email addresses, right? But it depends also on your price point. It depends on the type of audience. When I said 20 pre-orders for LaunchOS, it was kind of the reasoning that our combined audience on Twitter was something like 2,000 users. So if we could convert 1%, that would be nice, something like that, right? But of course, we also promoted on in communities and other places, so didn't really hold up that way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's kind of what makes sense. I can't really answer it for you. It's just trial and error.
It was a pretty wide question. Fair enough.
It's a classic, like, it depends question, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to take it offline and dive into your specific case with you afterwards or next week or something, and then we can see what we can do for you specifically. But yeah, in general, it's hard to answer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
because for certain things, right, Hjalmar, you are the most experienced here. But if you look at like conversion on landing pages and things like that, there are more established benchmarks that are more commonly used.
Definitely, yeah. It's like, I think it's 2.6% or something. You want to be above that. But then again, it really depends on your business. But on average, yeah, for sure. Yeah, on average, you can say if my landing page converts 2.6%, that's enough. But then, once you start looking at these more specific metrics, you have to make sure, like Max already pointed out, that you don't get false positives. So your data set has to be big enough. So for me to say I have a conversion percentage of 2.6%, I at least need like 10,000 visitors or something, and you're not going to get that as a first-time founder, I guess. Yeah. Unless you have financial means to throw a bunch of ads out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And talking of this, I think, yeah, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but how do we get access to your 100 Club community? Because that sounds great. Is that, yeah, just a Slack link or yeah?
Yeah, we can just send you the invite link, Slack link.
I think that'd be really useful for everyone, and it would be great if you could share that as well in the 100 days Slack as well. That'd be great, because I think that's a real problem you're solving here. So in this community, but yeah, I'm aware we are just getting on to the hour. So yeah, is any final questions from anyone before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you. As no code is mature, and this is exactly the kind of thing we want now. We're moving from the plane around with all the toys and moving up to, okay, how do we move forward with this? So yeah, I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Very welcome.
I echo exactly what Jason's saying there. It's inspirational. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And any final words, Marcus or Hjalmar, before we wrap up, that you'd like to share?
No, but just reach out, join the 100 Club if you want to chat to us there, or just reach out. I'm in the 100 Days of No Code community. So any questions, any help you need with anything,
I should probably join.
Yeah, we'd love to help.
We try to divide and conquer. But and what Marcus said, like reach out to us, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Slack. We're happy to help, happy to hop on a call and help you one-on-one. So no worries.
And Hjalmar is, when it comes to validation and stuff, coming from that corporate venture building world, he's a genius. So he will definitely help you out. So reach out to him.
Love that. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. Again, yeah, really enjoyed today's session. And we'll be sharing this recording in our newsletter, in the community, and on Twitter tomorrow or the day after. So yeah, excited for other people to see it as well, because I think it's a really good introduction to this way of thinking, and hopefully they buy your course afterwards to get that more in-depth insight.
Exactly.
Yeah. Only if they need it.
Exactly. But yeah, thanks guys, and let's speak soon. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for having us, Max.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Very
Yeah.
much.
Take care.
Take care.